Welcome back to Chesterton Road. It's been a long time since I posted anything on the channel. This is due to just life getting in the way, other hobbies, work, all that kind of stuff. But the layout is alive and well, as you can see. There has been a few changes over the last, however long it's been, 18 months or so. The most notable of which is the back scene, which you can probably see, which we'll go into in a bit more detail. So we'll have a look at the layout as a whole, see what I've been up to, a few new items of rolling stock to look at as well, and yeah, sit back and enjoy. So starting with the back scene, this is an area that I'd never really given a lot of thought to. This layout has been a kind of a learning process from when I first started. I never really put much thought into the back scene. I just put some boards up and painted them blue, which is what a lot of people seem to do, and it looked okay at the time. But then after a little while, I sort of started to think it looking a bit bland, so I thought what I could do to make it look a bit more interesting. I painted on some clouds, which kind of made it look a little bit better, but it still looked a little bit amateurish. It wasn't really quite what I was sort of hoping for, and it was kind of letting the rest of the layout down a little bit. I'd seen a lot of other layouts with these sort of photo back scenes, and they looked really good. And it was something I spent a bit of time thinking about, but because I'd already sort of started to do a lot of the scenics and there was a lot of stuff glued to the backboard, I didn't really want to sort of try and pull them off and do loads of damage to the layout that I'd then have to fix. But I kept thinking about it, and then one morning I just sort of thought, well, I'll have a go and see if I can pull the back scenes that are there already away and see if I can do sort of as little damage as possible. And surprisingly, they all came away quite easily. Didn't really do an awful lot of damage at all. So I then bought some more timber, some more plywood to build the newer, slightly higher backboards, and then sort of started looking at some of the photo back scenes you could get, and tried to find something that would be suitable for the kind of scene that I'm creating. And the one that I've opted for is sort of industrial scene, and also at the other end, which I'll show you in a minute. There's a bit of a quarry scene going on, which obviously ties in nicely with the quarry sidings that I've got up that end. These are very easy to apply. I forget where I got them from. It was I think they're ID back scenes, but they did two options. One was a paper one, and one was a slightly higher quality one with a self-adhesive backing, which is what I went for. It was very easy to apply. You just had to be a little bit careful to try and make sure you didn't get any sort of creases or air bubbles or anything. There's a few join lines, one of which is actually in view at the moment, but I managed to get them relatively good, so you can't really see them unless you really concentrate or look close up. So what I'll do, I'll take you off the tripod now and just give you an overview of the whole layout. So obviously this is the end of the little servicing shed. We've got, as I say, like a little sort of industrial scene going on at the back there. I'm just sort of still tidying up where I put the new backboards on, so that wall that I've put in there, that's still a work in progress. I've got to sort of tie all the scenery in there. And as we move along, you can see some of my new rolling stock there. So here we've got like the beginning of the kind of quarry, and as you can see, the quarry scene on the back scene sort of ties in very nicely with that. Excuse my shadow there, the lighting's not very good. And we've got some fencing there as well, just to sort of blend it in a little bit, but still more work to do there. And as you can see, the quarry scene carries on along here and into the background again. That sort of ties in very nicely with the scene that I've created. And then we get to the other end of the layout, the office building there, which still needs a little bit of finishing off. And then that's the end of the layout there. you've got that building sort of poking above the bridge there, which maybe not perfect, but at least it adds a little bit more interest. So I'll bring you back up this end. So with all the major work done on the layout, it's more about adding the little details now. In this area, kind of between the bridge and the office building, is one area that still needs a fair bit of work doing to it. But one of the things that I have been doing, as you can see, is just adding some little graffiti tags, which I think are a nice little detail. They look quite good. They're water slide transfers, which I think these came from Scale Model Scenery. They do a couple of different types, but they're relatively easy to apply, just need to be a little bit careful. But again, a nice little touch. And then you can see there's just a tiny little bit of litter there, which is another thing that I've been sort of adding very sporadically. I don't want to overdo it with things like that. But again, it's just those little details which just kind of help to tie all the little scenes together, just make it look a little bit more realistic, a bit more, a bit less bland, a bit more like real life. But again, there's a lot of work to be done here still. And back to the quarry scene here. Again, this is one of the sort of main focal points of the layout, really. So it's an area that I want to sort of get right, and spend a fair bit of time on getting it how I want it. So with the new back scene, obviously the bit you can see in front of you now is probably the one part that doesn't really sort of tie in properly, because you've got the sort of quarry scene at the front, and then it suddenly just goes to kind of fields with hedges and stuff, with no sort of transition in between. So I've put that fencing there just to sort of break it up a bit, and kind of sort of try and hide the obvious change. But I still need to do a little bit more work here. Just nothing too major, just something to kind of take your eyes away from that bit, so it doesn't quite blend in the way I would have liked. But it definitely looks a lot better than it did anyway. As I say, when you look at the layout as a whole, the back scene really does add a lot more sort of depth to it, a lot more realism, and it's probably me being a bit picky that I'm kind of, because I know with these parts that I'm not completely happy with are there, then my eyes are sort of kind of drawn to it rather than looking at the layout as a whole. But overall, I'm really pleased with this area. It's definitely looking a lot better than it was, and yeah, it's starting to look quite good. So as we move back to the left-hand side of the layout, as you can see, I've started to install this wall again as a little sort of break between the back scene and the layout itself. I was going to potentially put in like a line of trees or something, or bushes along here, but I thought that it would kind of hide part of the back scene, which I'd just gone to long lengths to install. So I decided against that. I did think about putting some more of the security fencing, but then I wanted to do something a little bit different. I thought that I'd get a bit samey if I put a long length of that in there. So I've gone for this sort of plasticard wall, just painted it in a sort of a grey with various different tones, and just sort of weathered it up a bit. So as you can see, that sort of starts off just behind the 66 where the signal box is. There's one of the joins between the boards, which unfortunately I can't really hide that any better than I already have. And then it just extends to the end there with the layout at the other end of the layout. As I say, still a lot of work to do on this area. I need to put down some static grass or some bushes, weeds, that kind of stuff. We've got some graffiti again, as you can see just in front of you there, and down there as well. Added some graffiti tags as well. I sort of figured that any trespassers that wanted to do that kind of thing would appear from the left-hand side somewhere. So that's where the main graffiti would be, and then it kind of gets less and less. And just that one tag there, and then they couldn't be bothered to walk up to this far. It's just easier to do it down the other end. So yeah, still more work to be done on this area, just to tie it all in again and make it look a bit more messy, some weeds and bushes and that kind of stuff. Yeah, again, another work in progress, and another area that still needs a little bit of time spent on it. One other area that's had a little bit of work doing on it is the servicing shed. I did consider sort of starting from scratch and building a new one of these. This is one of the first things I did on the layout, certainly the first kind of scratch built building I did, but I'd put so much sort of time and effort into it, and although it's not perfect, it's still, you know, a reasonable representation of what I was looking for. So I decided to kind of stick with it and just add a little bit more detail to try and make it look a little bit better. So you can see we've got the roof vents on there, which are a laser cut item from Scale Model Scenery again. They still need to be sort of weathered in and just sort of blended in a little bit. And then we've got, you know, a few more little details here and there. We've got, I think, say, like a salt bin just at the bottom there. We've got the numbers above the shed doors. I've also done a bit more painting inside the shed. I won't show you that because it's not particularly exciting, but it does just make it look a little bit better. The lighting as well is one thing I've sorted out on the layout. I'll maybe put up a few still pictures of that, but there's not a vast amount. But there's lighting in the shed and also in the inspection pits, and then the signal box has got a light in it. The office building's got a couple of lights as well, so that's all kind of wired in and working. So that's another little thing I've done. But that's pretty much it for the layout itself. As I say, it's not a huge amount of progress in however long it's been, but I've just been sort of doing little bits and pieces as and when I've found time. But what I'll do now is I'll show you some of the rolling stock that I've been buying as well. So to start off with, we've got this Dapol Network Rail JNA Falcon wagon. I don't intend buying any more of these, but I just quite like them. It's quite a nice little wagon. It's just adds a little bit of variety, just something else that can be shunted around, you know, in the servicing shed or on the layout itself, on the main layout. It's a bit too long to try and build up a rake of these wagons. In my longest siding, I'd probably only fit maybe 5 or 6, so I've tended to stick to sort of slightly shorter bogie wagons for that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a nice little wagon, well detailed, well priced. I think I paid about £25 for it, which I think is pretty good in today's market. Whether I sort of leave it as it is or weather it up a bit, I'm not sure. It obviously does look very clean and very pristine, which it wouldn't do in real life, but it's a nice little model anyway, and very free running, no issues with it. It doesn't derail on any of the points or anything like that. So that's wagon number 1. So the next set of rolling stock is these Akira Scale HYA cut down wagons. A really nice wagon. They look absolutely fantastic. Really well detailed, nice free running, run well, no issues on that front. There's a few different packs available. So I bought 2. They come in a pack of 2. So I've got 2 packs of 2. So we've got the plain C-Max ones there, and then just further up, the other ones are the VTG branded ones. There's a few others as well that you can get. I'll probably add maybe another 2 packs to give me 8 wagons in total, which would be about as many as I can fit in my longest siding without them sort of spilling over. So yeah, a couple more to add to that. The only issue I have had with these, there was a couple of buffers that came loose. I think one was missing completely, and one sort of needed a bit of glue just to fix it back into place. But Accurascale were very good about it. They sent me out some replacement buffers, no problem at all. Other than that, no issues with them. Again, they do have a lot of detail on them, so you have to be very careful when you're handling them. But other than that, yeah, a really nice wagon, really pleased with those. One thing I have done, which I'm going to start doing with most of my rolling stock, or all of it probably, is, if I just take you can't see it very well, I'll show you, give you a better view, but I've started to add the Hornby vacuum pipe magnetic couplings. They may not be perfectly realistic or prototypical, but they certainly look a lot better than tension lock couplings in my opinion, and obviously a lot easier to uncouple because you can just pull them apart, you don't have no fiddling about, but they're nice and strong, and they definitely sort of close up the gap between the wagons to a more realistic gap, but without causing any issues. These are the 20mm version. They do a 17mm, I think it is, but I think these would be a little bit tight. As you can see, there's not a massive gap between the buffers, so I think just that few millimetre difference would just sort of bring them a bit too close to the point where they might have issues. But yeah, really pleased with those. Again, as I say, another really well detailed wagon, and again really well priced. I think I paid £60 per pack, so £30 a wagon. Again, in today's market, that's pretty good. And then finally, for rolling stock, I've got these Dapol GBRF MJA wagons. Another one that I've had my eye on for quite a while. Just sort of not been focused on buying rolling stock particularly, but I went through a little period where I was adding bits and pieces. So again, these come in a pack of 2. So I've got 2 packs of 2 currently, and again, similar to the Accurascale wagons, I'll probably add another 2 packs to give me 8 in total, which will fit nicely in the siding I've got. Again, another really well detailed wagon, not quite as many sort of individual parts and detail as the Accurascale wagons, but these were slightly cheaper as well. I think I paid just over £50 for my local model shop for each pack of 2, so just over £25 a wagon, which you really can't complain about in today's market with the sort of prices that we're seeing. So yeah, again, really pleased with these. Whether these get weathered up, I don't know at the moment. I think it obviously look more realistic, but it's not something that I'm sort of desperate to do, either myself or paying someone to do it. Maybe just kind of give the bogies and the underframe a bit of a dusting, just to make them look a little bit kind of weather worn, like they've actually seen some use. Again, these have got the Hornby magnetic couplings on the outer, or this particular pair hasn't, but I didn't quite have enough to do all of them. But they come with a solid bar between each pair that you purchase, and then they have normal tension lock couplings on the outer ones. So yeah, I need to get another pack of the magnetic couplings just to finish those off, and also on some of my other rolling stock. So in terms of locomotives, nothing's changed on the layout since my last update. I've still got the 4 Class 66 locomotives, 3 Backmen, and then the one which you see in front of you, which is a Hattons. And then I've also still got my Backman Class 08 shunter, which is currently in bits at the moment. I'm in the process of, well, it needed a little bit of work doing to it anyway, but I'm going to try and fit a stay alive capacitor to that, just to help it get over the points and keep it sort of running smoothly, because unless I keep the track and the pickups and everything squeaky clean, it does have a habit of sort of stalling every now and then, which can be a little bit frustrating. So that's a little work in progress at the moment. We'll see how I get on with that. In terms of sort of future additions to the fleet, I've got my eye on quite a few. quite a few new releases, which a lot of people have, I'm sure. But in particular, I've got the Cavalex Class 56 on back order, which is due, I think it's sort of early part of next year, possibly. I know it's not too far away, so looking forward to that one. Also quite fancy a Dapol Class 59, but it's the GBRF liveried one that I'm particularly interested in, which hasn't been released yet, so kind of keeping an eye out for that one. A Cura Scale Class 37. Everyone needs a Class 37 on their layout, so at some point I'll hopefully add one of those to the fleet, probably the most recent DRS liveried one. So that's another expense. And then also the future release of, or re-release I suppose, of the Class 66 that a Cura Scale have bought the tooling for the Hattons one. I was quite lucky with my Hatton 66. I've had no issues with it whatsoever. Nothing fell off, nothing missing, but obviously a Cura Scale will improve that model and sort of solve all the issues that other people had with theirs. So I may well look at purchasing one or two more of those when they become available. And Class 60 as well is another one that I'm sort of interested in, because they're quite common on these, like a sort of quarry sort of type scene. If you look at Peak Forest, places like that, there's quite often Class 60s on the heavy aggregate trains, so it would make sense to add one of those to the fleet. But that's pretty much it, really. So there's enough of an expense there if I were to even buy one of all of those locomotives. But it just gives me a bit more variety. I suppose it's quite realistic having loads of Class 66s, because that's pretty much what you'd see, you know, in the real world. But we definitely want to add a bit of variety in there. So that's pretty much it for this update. As I say, with the layout at this stage, there's not an awful lot that I can deal with, that I can show. So the videos are very sporadic. I'll try and do some more kind of running sessions and things like that, and I'll maybe make a video of the adding the stay alive to the Bachmann 08, because the decoder that I've got in it isn't one that's ready for use with stay alive, so that's going to be interesting to see if I can kind of hardwire that in, but that's a possibility for another video. But yeah, as I say, there's just a case of adding little details here and there. As you can see on the office building, one thing I forgot to mention is the little DB logo. Again, it's those little things that just kind of add a bit more realism, little things that you can sort of pick up, kind of almost subconsciously, that if they weren't there, it would just look that little bit more plain, that little bit boring. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this update. I'll add in some running shots as well, just to break it all up a bit, make it a bit more interesting. As ever, if you've got any comments or suggestions or questions about the layout, please feel free to add them below. But otherwise, I will hopefully not leave it quite as long before I add another video. But yeah, take care, enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.